Cosmic Television Network. Dropping truth bombs.
Hello, everyone. Another short, exciting episode of Cosmic Television Network. Wanted to introduce you to a really great friend of mine, but before that, I do have to do my my disclosures. You know, nothing we say here is meant to treat or cure anyone. Please check with your medical practitioner, medical doctor for anything related to health. You know, this is strictly for entertainment purposes only. So if we say anything, you know, this is just our opinions and our views, and we're just having a good time and having fun. So basically, you know, I met Frank Rogala probably, you know, we've known about each other for quite a while, actually. But this year, you know, I've got introduced to him and we've been working together behind the scenes, and I've been making some connections for him. You know, he is a great author and researcher. You know, he's been traveling the world, you know, learning about these artifacts and different sacred sites. And I really resonate with him and what he's doing. And he's got this great, amazing Mackinaw conference coming up that I'm going to be live streaming too. So I won't be there personally, but I will be there on video to talk about some things. You can also live stream it yourself if you're not attending the conference. Of course, we want you to go because it's going to be so amazing with all the other people that's going to be there, like Isha and JP Missions and a bunch of others. Really a great setup, you know, there in Mackinaw Mission, which is a very special place as well. So with no further ado, Frank, where are you at? He's probably in the backstage here with Cameron.
Hey, so first off, I want to say a lot of you people have no idea who I am, and that just goes towards the integrity of this man being able to put on somebody like me who doesn't have a huge platform. But I'll introduce myself, Frank Rogala. I'm an author, a filmmaker, a researcher. The past couple of years, I've been just basically traveling the world and working with researchers and experiencers and experts, just trying to connect some of the dots between the ancient past, the non-human intelligence question, and where humanity is headed. And that led to this book that I just got out. It's called Saving Civilization, Cracking Open Reality Beyond the Mainstream Veil. And it actually has resulted in a patent that's now pending for a new information structure to change the way we handle all human information, to get away from, which is what is basically a control structure right now. So, and that ultimately led to disclosure in Mackinaw, which is, you know, and Emery is a part of that story, which is why I'm here today. And Emery will be appearing virtually live there. And I'm really excited because I've asked him to not only present the things that you're used to Emery doing on Gaia and Cosmic Disclosure, but the things he's passionate about, his new technologies with Darla Smith that they're going to do a major presentation on at the conference as well. So thank you. And so, but I wanted not to hijack you, Emery.
No, you're good.
But I want to say something. There's something you said that stuck with me. You know, you said, you know, disclosure's like, I've been doing it for so many years now. It's like, it's not a new thing for you. You know, it's like your brand, but it's like old news to you, really. I mean, you've talked about these subjects, you live with them, you've interviewed people, you know, but we're still, for a huge amount of the population, we're still at the stage of like them wondering like if any of this could be real, even though we've had sworn testimony in front of Congress, you know, about recovered craft and biologics, and everybody kind of just is going on with their day, you know. And the problem isn't necessarily obtaining more disclosure. It's like, how do we, developed a civilization so that they can intelligently even process what's already been disclosed. I mean, they're just not even, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's a very slow disclosure. I think it's comical, it's frustrating, and it's the first step we have to go through. I wish I know Congress and a lot of the big wigs personally in there they're big fans of cosmic disclosure. I've been asked to come to DC many times, and many famous podcasters and stuff, but that's not what I'm about right now. If you want to know what it's about, go watch Cosmic Disclosure. The link is here in the post. Cameron will post it. And there's a lot of information, and they have to strategically release that on a very slow rate, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm very upset with a dot flying through the sky and saying we don't know what this is, when they've already admitted to having bodies, they've already admitted to having craft, both alive and dead. They admit to having their alien reproduction vehicles, but no one's really talking about it. And that's part of the whole soft disclosure. And they have to come to terms with that very soon, because the extraterrestrials are meeting with world leaders and religious leaders, and they are talking, and they're saying, well, we're coming, and this is how it's going to be. And so I think it's a good sign that we need the hot pokers on everyone to get them stimulated. Hey, we got to move this a little bit faster, because we're going to look like we didn't know what was going on when they know everything that's going on. So I think it's a good sign that they are at least taking baby steps. Yeah, it's frustrating, it's silly. Most of us can go out under the stars at night like you do every night, Frank, and I do, and vector these guys in and have amazing contact, like you're going to be doing at your conference. So I think in due time, more and more is going to be released. I think it'll start accelerating a little bit more, because they are under pressure right now to get more information out, and they're testing the waters too, and seeing how people are going to respond. I think people are definitely ready for it worldwide. It's been in the ancient text since forever, which you're going to get into. So,
yeah. So Tony Rodriguez was saying, like, people that have been through and recovering memories from programs and other things, he was urging them to use their memories of these things, like, to help recover some of the technologies they've been shown, right? For him, it was this binaural tone that they would play him before they would give him this education program to synchronize the hemispheres of his brain, and he's been able to recreate that. And so I know that the things that you and Darla are putting together now, did you construct those from scratch, or does it come from kind of this greater world that you've been exposed to?
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I was exposed to a lot of these things, of course, in the classified projects in the Air Force. But I've already had been visited when I was younger, and kind of prepped for this kind of thing. And all my hundreds of patents that are out there are all of service. They're not widgets. These are the things, medical devices, FDA approved 510K medical devices that I did have a lot of help from above. And there's no way I could have came through these algorithms by myself. It made sense to me, but I needed help, and they were definitely there. They definitely gave me the tools and the knowledge to research certain things. So here's an idea, you better go check under the microscope what the cells are doing. And that's what I did my whole life, was research regenerative medicine and come up with these amazing devices. Like I invented the first tabletop stem cell platelet-rich plasma concentrator, and that kind of launched me into the medical field as a well-known person, that knows what he's talking about, and also done thousands and thousands of cases worldwide. I cured peripheral artery disease at Ohio State University, conquered wound care by just concentrating your body's own natural healing factors and applying it to an area, or bolusing it into an area of the body to reproduce, angiogenesis, new nerve tissue, and things like that. It took a long time. I mean, it was a big fight. I was basically a witch doctor for 10 years, and I was slammed and brought through the ringer, and I'm still here. And I share the technology. It wasn't something I was going to hold on to. It was too beneficial for humanity, because it just not affects humans. It also affects the creatures of the earth and the animals. And I was really a big advocate of, saving the animals, and was part of a lot of projects for sanctuaries around the United States and elsewhere, to getting them good medical attention. Plus, it just shows that, we can do this if we really want to. And it's up to the big medical corporations to move it forward, which I did share that with them, and, let that go, because it was definitely snowballing. And now it's like standard of care. You hear the word platelet-rich plasma all the time, stem cell infusions, exosomes, alpha-2 macroglobulin, all these different types of proteins that we were able to gather. Now we're strictly away from the surgical part and these kind of applications. We're more into frequency-based medicine and developing more of these frequency-based devices that use harmonics, photonics, and other scalar and photometry frequencies to help stimulate the body into healing itself, because it's under such a bombardment of horrible 5G and radio frequencies, and that's okay, because we're one tough species.
That's true. Like, okay, I just want to hit on 4 things you just said there. Number one is like, when you get people talk about downloads, you get information, and sometimes you don't know where it comes from, right? And I just recently experienced that with this book, because I was standing next to Nassim, and the concept came to me, and I was like, okay, is this a thing? And I said, Nassim, what if we restructured all human knowledge? And then I explained it, and he went, oh, that's a good idea, right? And then it took me 3 years I saw it in a flash. I could say it to him because he's freaking, can understand.
Yeah.
But then to articulate it, put the math into it, create a patent application, it takes a lot of extra energy. And so when you're talking about, you can be exposed to it, you can see it, you can have it come to you, but then executing it and pulling it out in this realm can be a challenge, But the other thing I want to mention too is, like, we got, you're talking about, frequency. Like, I like to explain what you're doing, and tell me if I'm wrong. When they take a picture of a faraway planet and they go, oh, this is a M-class planet, we could live there. And they're saying, well, how can they do that? It's so far away. And they basically are only getting light. And they're taking that light and they're breaking into spectrums, and they're analyzing those spectrums to say how much oxygen, hydrogen, and to break it down. And so the way that I explain, the way I understand that your technology works, is that you're doing a similar thing, but it's with the, imaging of the human body and the frequencies that come across in basically the light, the photons, in an image, right?
Yeah, so that 2-part question, definitely the downloads are up for interpretation and translation. So it's not like a direct answer. Oh yeah, you take this block and put it in, this little square model. No, it's a little bit more complicated, and that's okay, because it forces us to learn more about science and quantum physics, and opens up the mind a lot. So a lot of things, the downloads we get are not, complete full instructions on how to build something. It's more like parts and pieces, which it's normal for that to happen, for us to evolve correctly and make mistakes, because we're not making mistakes. We're not really learning from it. So I made a lot of mistakes, and in science and in other places too. But, you learn from that, and you got to get up and keep going and moving forward. So yeah, so what the James Webb Telescope does is take, pictures of faraway planets, and they're like, oh, this planet's habitable. It's got all the necessary elements. Well, how the hell do they know that? It's light years away. Well, back in the day, when they were developing these devices, in the classified projects I was involved with, they were measuring the photons are being reflected and the frequencies being reflected off of the planet. So the light, just a picture of the planet, we can tell everything that's on the planet. And what I did is reverse engineered that and say, well, we can also measure our light body with the light that's coming off of us, that, it's not always visible light, of course. And also with a DNA particle of your fingernail or your hair strand, that also emanates light. And we can measure those light, those atoms on the light and the molecules, and see what kind of elements are going on in there. And, this all started back in 1899, 95 with Tesla Stubblefield, and then later on with Rife, where we're measuring frequencies based off of microorganisms and life forms. And, that was a great database. And, all my stuff is based off of Rife and a lot of these other earlier engineers from China and Russia and Germany. And but I noticed they had all these different systems out there, and not any of the systems actually had all of those together. So we went out and we were purchasing frequencies from all these amazing clandestine corporations, and we put it into one program. So we're over 4 or 5 million frequencies now, that we have in these programs that we can actually, look into, scan someone, get a full, accurate, reading on that in 4 different ways too. It's not just one way. We say, oh, there's something here, because people, what's going on medically is that, people have, like their knee hurts, they go in, they x-ray it, they have arthritis, they give them a cortisone injection. This is not the way to fix, what's really going on in the body. You have to know the physician, and we lost that because we have so many specialties now. But, back in the day in Chinese medicine, they're checking your energy fields. They're looking at, where the energy gaps are. And that's also, is a big indication of, what's going on with the entire body. And a lot of this is also emotional based medicine, which is, a hard thing to grasp right now, is because a lot of things that are happening with people are emotional trauma or genetic DNA transmitted trauma from, their lineages that they're carrying with them. And there's nothing, they can do about it. So we can go in there, we can cut those tethers, we can realign the DNA and the frequencies so that it's more beneficial to the patient. And that's kind of what we're doing. And our technology is definitely being utilized in all the new med beds coming out, and 2 or 3 years from now. This is already the med bed. Med beds, I think, are going to actually go to the wayside, because a lot of the frequency-based medicine now can be done long distantly through nonlinear systems and frequency healing based off of scalar technologies. Ours is the only NLS nonlinear system out there that uses scalar technology, which you have to have a license for. You can't just go out and use scalar technologies, because scalar technologies can be used as a weapon. But we're monitored with that. It's great. Can't really talk about that part, but it's great that they're allowing us to do this, because the high-end echelon people that we are treating throughout the world that have to have clandestine treatment. So I think getting back to that, that's how it's done. It's measuring the light coming off the light body, whether it's DNA that has all the coding of your entire history and what you've been through. We know if you went to Mexico last month, we can open that timeline on there and kind of see that. Or maybe it was genetic, that you were born with something and you kind of been sick your whole life. So these are great, new technologies that are going to be released, hopefully, a lot of the quantum technologies that secret technologies that have been released in the last 4 or 5 months, that I know they signed a bill and they're trying to get these things out. But it's still a very slow process. And, who's in charge of that? This is a very, very cliche kind of, type of science, that's out there. And, the great thing about it is, they've been studying this science for a very, very long time. They know it's out there. There's lots of white papers on it. They're just not all conglomerated onto one issue with the human body.
Yeah, so the frequency-based medicine, it's been really heavily covered up and kind of buried for a long time. But just a couple days ago, I always watch when something hits all the main news, right? Because it made me think of you, because it was a treatment for Parkinson's that completely took care of it, and it was frequency-based. And I was like, whoa, this is in the news? This is interesting, because it's like this is kind of your... People are very fixated on med beds right now. So I just want to mention, Emery educated me a little bit that med beds aren't necessarily the be all end all. And even JP told me, he goes, it's not like it cured me of everything. And it's like, he says, you want more. And I asked him a couple of questions that he went, oh, because there's serious things with med beds that most people don't know about too. But what Emery's talking about, I don't know if it went by you guys, but he's talking about, you don't have to be in the same room as that equipment. And full disclosure, just to be I'm working with Emery and Darla, and I will get a irritated text message from Darla, you're not drinking enough water today. And she's in California, I'm in Michigan, and I'm like, well, and then I realized I was working on my book. I was finishing my book, and I looked over and I have a picture of water, and I went, I didn't drink any water today. I didn't get up. I was just so this is not a joke. And the other component that Emery hasn't mentioned yet is that a lot of what's going on with us, we've been kind of hypnotized into forgetting a lot of the ancient ways of fasting and things that would clear parasites and a lot of these traditions. And his technology is going beyond the just the size of a cell or a molecule into nano treatments that go through this. Because for myself, I've had some really serious kind of things with Lyme disease and other parasitic things. And I also have a big reaction when I'm getting rid of them, right? And they leave behind eggs and spirochetes and all these unpleasant things, and they hide. But Emery's technology is actually, it's like found the secret door into to bypass that. So I just wanted to prompt you because I think it's a really important part. It's another angle to what you're working on that I think has not really been explored yet.
Yeah, thanks, Frank, for mentioning that. I mean, it's a very diverse, very intricate type of systems that we use in the science. You know, it is out there, the science. It's not like it's been suppressed for so long. And you know, everyone on here knows. Most of you guys are healers. I see a lot of healers on here. It's no different than, you know, reading someone's energy field. You know how they, you know, how Reiki masters do it. You know, we don't call upon you, of course, any other supernaturals or anything. But all I'm saying is it is about just like praying. You know, you're manifesting the energies. You know, we get a lot of, you know, high-end people that are like, oh, you know, I think it's a one and done. There's no one and done. Like JP said, even with a med bed, there are major lifestyle changes. And, you know, our patients, you know, have to be, it's a big education thing when you come on board as a patient. As you know, we spend hundreds of hours, you know, with you, getting you on the right protocol, on the right health plan. You know, if you're really serious about your health and you want to live another 100 years, well, you better listen to what we say. That's why you hired us to do it. And we, as you know, we're very strict and we're in your face. There is no friendship when we talk about this because you need to know how to, you know, survive these next 100 years. And that has to do with big body modification changes with your diet, with your health, like exercising, drinking water. And these are basic things: exercising, drinking water, grounding, getting outside. You know, we do breath work. You know, we want people to get into stretching. And we're not saying that we're putting you on some sort of Ironman competition thing. These are simple things that's taking a walk around the block. You know, the body needs energy and it needs to move. And a lot of us are stuck sometimes in a, you know, in a home where we don't get to go out, whether it's the weather, whether it's our job because we're at a desk, and you have to make time for yourself. And one of the biggest things we do is we counsel. You know, it's a lot of counseling going on about the emotional state of the patient, and they're in living environments. You know, maybe they're living with some toxic people. Maybe they're, you know, being attacked by coworkers. You know, there's a lot of other underlying issues that blocks your energy fields from being healed because the cells want you to heal. That's their job, but they can't heal when they're full of parasites, viruses, bacteria, funguses, and molds. When we start eliminating them, we notice the patients, of course, are getting better. You know, I can't say the other word, but you know, we've done thousands of patients where we really helped them out a lot and got them back. You know, we're basically, to cover myself, we're just getting the body back to homeostasis so it can do the job. And that's what a lot of my research has been on for 30 years, is basically getting the body's concentrating its own healing activating agents. Now we can do it through frequencies. You know, it wasn't about concentrating the healing cells and putting in there. What the government didn't want me to say is, don't talk about the frequencies of the concentrating healing cells being in an area that's going to stimulate the body into healing. And that's really the secret to a lot of the stuff that we do, is just using the body's own natural, you know, energetic fields to, you know, like heal itself. And of course, like I said, drinking some water and changing the diet and changing maybe your lifestyle, maybe get the Wi-Fi out of your closet, get the cell phone away from your bedstand, you know, get a protector for that or something, you know, incorporate other crystal technologies. Maybe you want us to grid the home. We grid properties, we grid homes, you know, and make big, you know, Faraday cages that, you know, you can, you know, actually protect your home. They now have paints and stuff and roofing tiles that can, you know, block a lot of this. If you're, you know, next to, you know, a cell tower and you can't move, you know, these things have been proven already to, you know, really hurt people. So we got to make sure that they're protected through the electromagnetic frequencies, which, by the way, is what feeds parasites, bacteria, viruses, molds, and funguses. They actually get accelerated in the petri dish on the microscope when you put a cell phone next to them. So they're getting energies from this, and that's not what we want, because it's mutating our own DNA at the same time. So it's also about getting the DNA on the correct vibratory state, which you can also do all by yourself with nothing, just by meditating and, you know, exercising and eating right. Not everyone has that ability to do that because of their position, their jobs, their lifestyle. We understand that, but it is our job to educate and inform the patients of this is what you need to be doing if you want to keep going. There's no one and done, jump in a med bed and you're done. As JP said, you can do med beds all day long, and you still are susceptible when you leave the med bed. So we're trying to rebuild the immune system and making sure that creating solutions, nanoparticle solutions that help block EMF and also help give the nutrients and minerals and the right frequencies to the cells so they can do their job by themselves.
Yeah, so I don't want to disclose anything, but a med bed isn't necessarily like super easy on you either. But so just want to mention,
real med beds, the real med beds, you have a good 5 to 7% chance of not waking up. You're going to get regenerated, but it's not like this perfected thing. And I was offered this, as you know, Frank and Darla, many times with some really classified stuff, but it's not worth saying, oh, I'm not, in a bed with cancer dying right now that can't be fixed. There's no ego here. I don't mind getting old as long as I have no problems and I can move and I can talk and I can have a healthy body. That's all it's about, being really healthy, and which is not hard to do. If you go back in time, a lot of people were much more healthier and they were taking time to take care of their body. What I see today is people are not taking care of their body. I see a lot of healers out there teaching healing, but they're not taking care of themselves. And it's easy to, what I call them the regurgers. So they'll read all these studies and they'll watch my videos and they'll go make their own videos and talk about things that they just are regurging from someone else without really walking the path and following the path. And I've slipped off, the wagon many times, and I had to get back on it and say, hey, now it's Emery time. Darla and I are always pushing each other. Hey, we haven't done this week. We didn't go hiking, or we didn't get to the gym, or we didn't, we've been eating, not correctly, or whatever it is. So it is something that you have to be in check with yourself all the time. Is this piece of food going to serve me, with my conditions I have? You got to really think about yourselves, and you got to think that you're not just you are made up of trillions of these other beings that are trying to keep you alive. And you need to talk to those, those beings, those cells, and you got to activate those cells with affirmations, confirmations, and of course, you have to supply the right and necessary molecules for them, and the right water. The water is a big thing. We have a new water system coming out in October for the whole house. It restructures the water for the whole house. We have smaller systems too that are coming out, state of the art, the most elite systems, very affordable too. And these systems are very affordable, and that's because of the inventor that's involved with this wants to make sure everyone can have it. These are the solutions that Cameron's showing you on emerysmith.co. We make a lot of nanotechnology solutions because when it comes down to viruses, that when they're 0.2 nanometers small, and all these other bacteria and other parasites, you can take ivermectin all day long. It's only going to kill 3 or 4 parasites, and it's not going to kill their eggs. It's not going to kill their cysts. It's not going to kill their larvae. So these things, are important to have nanotechnology infused minerals that are known to help eradicate and neutralize these types of pathogens. And it's easy to, get infected with any pathogens. You're getting infected all the time. The body usually fights them all off by itself. But most people are immune compromised because of their lifestyle.
Yeah, so I wanted to just talk a little bit, because you mentioned it in the middle of that. One thing that I learned and I tried to really illustrate in my book was the power of our consciousness in this realm, and the way that we're taught from the time we're born to outsource it to, this teacher, this priest, this mullah, this a celebrity, this authority figure. And by not realizing that we in and of ourselves, like, okay, one thing I noticed when meeting you and being in your physical presence, being in JP's physical presence, you guys you have this gut. You just you're feeling everything around you, right? And your antenna is so sharp compared to most people that are looking for the external signals of, what's somebody else going to tell me? Who's the expert? What's the right thing to do, rather than having their own gut, tell them. And it takes a matter of time to get that programming out of your head to get back in and become. And like you said, there are billions of organisms helping you and a part of you and a field around you of them as well. And they're all affected by your consciousness. And where this isn't like your, like let's say your hippie aunt's crystal woo-woo. This is like scientifically provable now, the power of consciousness. Yes. Because I spent a lot of time on my book is a big red pill, right? And it's got all these things people can look up. And when they see them, they're like, oh, I think I saw that. Oh, and then I give them all the references at the end that literally what you think will change freaking hard reality. And when you get a field of people all in that same consciousness, it makes it more powerful. But it's the field that now is being controlled by the greater, the media, the political system. Oh, we have to have war. Oh, we don't have this. We have lack of this. We have to, and that's it's like a hypnotism. And from the time we're little, we're used to outsourcing that our own personal agency and gut. And so I use you and JP as an example all the time of like, these guys are totally just like on here, Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because that was, you kind of went through that quickly and I'm thinking that's a really important point.
Yeah, it is, and thanks for the props and stuff. This is not rocket science, the whole, our whole objective at Emery Star Labs is basically education, for the patient, because in the future, you are going to be the clinical practitioner. And let's face it, most extraterrestrial civilizations, these young kids around 7 or 8 already have, triple master's degrees and PhDs. The kids already know how to do surgery and stuff, but they have more technology than we do. I think the secret behind all this, what I can tell everyone is we want to educate you guys because I believe during, my realm here, hanging out while I'm here, that we're going to beat the med beds, that we're going to be able, okay, listen to me. Everyone listen to me. You are the med bed, okay? You just don't know how to turn it on. It's real simple. We don't need a fancy technology to do it. It helps us understand it because a lot of people, it's hard to, well, how the heck are you healing me from the other side of the planet? Yeah, I'm healed. Okay, I feel better. But, how does that happen? And a lot of people, because they've been programmed, especially the elder community, it's really hard to grasp that. Now, of course, I've been, I have just an unlimited amount of resources and education that I've been exposed to that most people can't. But there are the people out there that, these people that understand the quantum entanglement and the energies, that this has to do with. So you are the med bed. Activating you is really where we're trying to do the baseline, using these technologies to slowly break you in. Now we're trying to get these technologies out to, and I know that our political government really wanted everyone to have these things at some point. And I don't believe it's going to be a big med bed pod you jump in. I think that's more of a pop culture thing because you don't need a med bed pod to do this. You do need a device, to sit in and to understand that, there are different types of technologies that can actually, help you accentuate your own energetic field. And that's what we're talking about, raising the voltage of all the cells in the body so they can do what they're supposed to do. And also block all these negative energies. You get negative energies from, just listening to something. They've already proven now on FM frequencies, they can, incorporate different types of viruses and bacteria. This is real stuff. This is the biologics warfare that's going on behind this is a very serious thing. And that's where it's kind of going to is mind manipulation with nanotechnologies, like the nanometals that are in peptides and inoculations. This is going to be a big problem here. Everyone's on peptides, I won't get into that because of the corporations behind it are very, very aggressive with that. But, I know the whole stories behind that as well. So it all looks good and it all seems great and you're losing weight or whatever through this injection, but there's a lot more behind that because it's unregulated things that you're injecting. It's no different than the COVID shot. So, how many of you would do the COVID shot now that you know what you know? You wouldn't do it. So why are you jacking yourself up with all these peptides? I mean, there's a lot of things out there that they're doing this on purpose. The whole world is set up for us to be sick and And it doesn't have to be that way. It's all about the education.
For entertainment purposes only.
For entertainment purposes only, of course. This is just an entertainment.
So we were chatting a little bit before about, it just seems like there's kind of a big wave right now. Like you tend to think of like these blobs of like government and the control systems as being this kind of big one thing, but it's not like that. It's a little more complicated. There's factions. They don't get along. They have different things they're protecting. And just in the last month, like I'm people can pick on me all they want, but when they go after my friends, I just, I do something like make a coloring book or a Mr. Rogers video. I don't do anything aggressive, but I try to illustrate the amount of disinformation, and you can almost tell who's onto something when they get attacked. Because just in the last month, I've had, a researcher we both know who's been working on these artifacts, just like be threatened with lawsuits and all kinds of like really bad, like a whole channel kind of dedicated against him. Filippo Biondi, he had a part of his paper retracted just politically. It wasn't even saying what it was. And it's like, I've known him for years. I know his technology, his stuff is for real. And so, and then there's a couple other examples as well of just these attacks that have gotten a little more sophisticated. And we were talking about some of the online platforms that are basically just kind of deep state controlled, kind of made to generate a lot of negativity. And the biggest thing is the dirt and the disinformation that comes up, like, that paper got thrown out, that's been debunked. Like, Edgar Casey's been debunked, and the people see that the machines, though, they're actually, they will, because this was a big point of study for my book, was information will get cast off, thrown away. Wikipedia will take things out. It will fall off the search engines. You remember when you used to do a Google search and it would say one of 732,000 results? Doesn't say that anymore. You go to about 30 pages now and it starts repeating itself, right? Yeah. It's because it's got to fit in here. If it doesn't fit in here, it's an anomaly. It's disinformation. It might be even a new discovery, but that's how threatened they are at the moment. And so I almost think it's like it's almost a badge of honor to have these attacks, yet the way that we perceive information, yes, no, right, wrong, false, debunked, people have no okay, so let me just give a quick little plug here for my information structure, right? This information structure, everything goes on it. Stuff we all know things that we were told that were true that we now know are false. And we all know things that we were told were false we now know are true. But even in physics, constants like the speed of light or when water boils, those change under different conditions. So even the universe doesn't fit along a straight line. So why should our information system do that unless it's a control system, which is what it is since the last cataclysm when we started, over again. So, I mean, I'm talking like one of my favorite things is, I don't even want to say the physicist because he talks about his ET contacts and stuff, but I mean, he's very famous in the Atacama, guy, like out of Mesoamerica, so much stuff is coming out. And I know that your deep research on DNA and this one thing, this guy here. Okay. So now this is recoverable DNA, right? And even with that, I'm not going to say who it is, but it was somebody who I was looking at and thinking I was respecting them before that. And when he came out with his information, I went, oh, okay, now I know where that's going. Okay. So even these people that look like they're in the community, they're giving you disclosure. It's really tricky, It
is. It's hard because some of these are my colleagues and used to be my friends. And, there are agendas. And there's ego, a lot of ego. I can't stand when in the conscious network, when we see colleagues, bad mouthing each other, that's not what we're about. I could sit here and talk crap about everyone all day long. What is that good for me or for anyone else? You have to use your own discernment with anyone, look into those people's eyes, use your own heart energy to like, what resonates with you, what doesn't resonate with you. I mean, there's dirt on everybody. There's dirt on me. There's dirt on everyone floating around, and most of it is all disinformation, because there's only a piece of that story that might be true. Even with like the Atacama, there's a truth to that, and then there's a disinformation campaign, and a little bit of truth, and then, oh no, we got to get rid of this. It's going to cause problems. That's been being done for thousands of years here, like you said, since the last cataclysmic event. But now is our time to like change that around, be more truthful and vigilant with each other, and just say, hey, I don't know. If I don't know something, I'm saying, hey, I don't know. I don't have that experience. And I think for a lot of people, a lot of people that are really in the conscious UFO ET world, they don't want to say that, and it's okay to say that. It saves a lot of face down the road, because everything's going to come out eventually, and you're going to have to understand that, oh, maybe I wrote this paper based off of just one theory or one couple books I read. It's just they're setting everything up for you to have doubt, number one. And you have to realize that. I think you mentioned this in your book and stuff. It is a very amazing format of, let's get this message out, or let's look over here while this is going on. That's done all the time. There's so much to the story. And I think if everyone knew the truth, everyone would actually get along a lot better, and saying, yeah, I figured that. I don't know how many times I've heard, if we're teaching patients to, oh yeah, I probably really sensed that. I just didn't know. Because everyone wants to go with whatever that flow is, whatever that agenda is on social networking right now. Okay, yeah, you have vitamin C here. Oh my gosh, and this vitamin C is the best because it does this, because vitamin C has been proven to do all this stuff. But they're not going to tell you about all the failed studies of vitamin C. They're not going to tell you what amounts you're supposed to be taking as therapeutic. They're not going to talk about specifics, which is just based off of the manufacturers. That's why the manufacturers are killing it out there in the $1 trillion supplement business, because every commercial, there's not one commercial that comes up with a pill on social that doesn't list something that you have a problem that could fix. And that's the whole secret. It's not going to fix that one problem, because you have multiple problems going on, multiple challenges in your body right now, and there's not a one and done thing. It has to be done on a very strategic way with your body, of certain things for certain people. The one thing is not always good for someone else. I don't care. It doesn't work that way. It's very rare that we have patients just taking the same exact thing. Everyone has their own, allergy response system, and certain things work better with different lineages. And lineages have a lot to do with, healing people. And that's another thing people don't understand. What might be good for this person is not good for the other person, where they have dairy sensitivities, gluten sensitivities, or medication allergic reactions. These are big questions and things that need to be answered on a patient to patient basis.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think has happened is with disclosure, there's going to be people are going to learn a lot of bad behavior that happened, right?
Yeah.
And I think they had to wait a lot of years for a lot of these people to kind of get out of the system or die or whatever, but there's still a lot that people will be really upset and shocked and pissed off about. And I think that that's part of the calculation. It's like they're opening up a Pandora's box in a way, because we've got for me, the more I learned about it, it took me a while just to be able to handle it emotionally. When you think about what somebody could do to a human, or even an animal, it's just it takes a certain kind of psychopath, and it's not necessarily. I don't necessarily know that it's like, I've been all over the world, and the poorest people in the world will give me their last piece of bread and treat me like their brother, and look me in the eye and smile, in a way that, you just like feel like the human being is really an incredible, beautiful thing. But when when you put it under stress and you disinform it, and you try to control it in just the most cruel and fascist kind of way, you're gonna get bad results. But I think part of let me just get back to, we're talking about DNA and memory. Let me just also mention, okay, real quickly, disclosure in Mackinaw next week. It's going to be
Yes.
amazing. We're going to have Emery there and a bunch of information drops that are for the first time happening. And we're going to be having some artifacts that have been discovered that no one has seen. From talk about disinformation, there's a lot of stuff coming out of Mesoamerica right now that is pretty shocking. Everything coming out does not look quite human, and the technology that's using a very high advanced polymer sciences is uncovering things about these artifacts that are going to change the world. So disclosure in Mackinaw, you can go to Mortals of Earth for that. But one thing I wanted to bring up with you, Emery, is that I have a theory in my book. I was in Chile after coming off Easter Island, and I'm going through the museum, and there was a mummy. And you think of a mummy as being this thing wrapped in bandages that looks like a human, right? But it was basically a pancake of hair and tissue that had been ritually saved. And I'm thinking, well, that's thousands of years old, but that DNA is still there, right? And then from what I know, also researching in my book about this doctor that did a lot of transplants, and then he would research the people that received these different organs, and talking to Nassim Haramein, who will not let anybody give him a blood transfusion or anything for somebody else's body because of his DNA and his antenna not wanting to, mix it with something else. It occurred to me that with epigenetic DNA, we're changing, we're learning, we're carrying with us what our ancestors had, that it's basically an antenna to space-time. People that have been in these programs and they erase the memory, it comes back after about 11 years or so. Like that's the average I've seen, about 11 years. They'll be in a grocery store and see somebody and go, God, where do I know him from? Right. And it'll start coming back. And it's because, we're not in here. It's that antenna coming from outside. And so working with the DNA itself, they've been leaving us records for thousands of years. We got all those mummies from Egypt. We've got mummies from, Peru. We've got mummies from Mesoamerica, and, they're little libraries. I mean, that's kind of my way of interpreting it. This is my own humble opinion of why else on all these continents would they put the effort into saving this tissue, right? And you're using fingernail clippings and things like that to analyze and read information of that being and their past lineages as well. So I just wanted to bring that up with you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, how ironic is that we have these 3,000-year-old mummies, even older in some places, and that tells a story. The DNA is preserved. The DNA is a timeline when we unfold it with our technology, and that goes for the DNA, even with the parasites in your body. We know how they got there. We know where they came from. We know, your DNA is connected. You're a crystalline structure. It's all about the crystalline structure of the DNA being the antenna, being connected to source, being connected to the earth and different types of crystals that heal you. And the intention of vocalization and affirmations to yourself and the body, all have to do with communication. So the communication amongst the stars, and even when you're working under the stars with extraterrestrials, or if you guys do work with extraterrestrials, many of you do, it has to do with the exchange of, the energy of the heart of, what you guys are trying to accomplish for humanity or for that race or for that being at that moment. If you're trying to save someone. So I think all of this, is definitely tethered to a greater source of energy. Getting tethered or getting those tethers cut by radio frequencies or EMF and 5G and things like that is very discombobulating. So it's a daily thing that you have to protect yourself. And whether it's whatever your ritual is, I don't care if it's sage in the house or taking a Himalayan salt bath, these are all great things and simple things you can do to reset the body, because the body's always going to reset to the main source of where you're from, which is the main energy. All these other tethers are trying to get to you and discombobulate your DNA and program you, and that's what we're trying to teach this.
Yeah, so I think that was a big shock to them when COVID came out, that the human genome was resilient enough. I mean, was very deadly, killed a lot of people, but it was resilient enough to, I don't think they expected what happened, right? That so many people, it was very survivable unless you were ill or had other conditions or sensitivities. And there's something about our genome that we're just learning how powerful it is, how much has not been unlocked and how much has been kind of turned off. One of the things that I uncovered in the book was in my research, every living creature, every bug, every fish, every mammal, everything on this earth that lives has 6 to 12. They haven't tested everything, but everything they have tested, 6 to 12 genetic defects. That's under a dozen, 6 to 12. Human beings singularly have close to 6,000, and they're finding more. And the chances of us being the only ones like this in this ecosystem, I always have to come up with metaphors, because when I give you a number of the chances, you can't conceive of it. But it's this one, you might have heard this before, but it's basically a metaphor for the impossible, where a jet engine is flying through the sky, it blows up, all the pieces fall to the ground, and they reassemble, and it runs better than it did in the first place. That would be the chances of us having close to 6,000 genetic defects when everything else on Earth has 6 to 12, that being natural. And the other things that I covered in my book were, I had literally spoken to the scientist who found the splice on our genome that doubled our neural capacity, but for his own safety, I couldn't say who he was, but I was giving all the anecdotal information, right, which is, it's really strong. But then I found out the Max Planck Institute has actually, in a peer-reviewed study, identified the TLTK1 enzyme that leads to this genetic splice, and that alone was the same probability as that jet engine blowing up and reassembling. For it to be possible, it was as a natural thing, it's basically impossible. So I just wanted to illustrate that we are working with. We've been physically damaged on purpose. We've been blinded, and we are capable of fixing ourselves. Like Emery says, we are the med bed. We are. Yeah. That's a great title. We are the med.
Yeah, we are the med bed. That'll be my talk then. We are the med bed.
Yeah.
We are a lot of other things too. I think people just need to realize, like you said, our DNA has been manipulated so many times by so many different species. It wasn't just one. And it was for their own reasons, unfortunately, that were negative, for whatever they wanted to control us for. But over time, and as you talked about the mind swiping with soldiers and clandestine people like myself, you do start to remember things that happened. And some people that doesn't work with when they try to mind swipe us, like myself. It doesn't work at all. But you don't say anything, you just act dumb. And you get to learn a lot more about what's going on. So you can recapitulate your DNA back to your infant state before it was infected. And that's something that is we're working on right now with some amazing people, scientists, and we're proving that. So longevity moving forward is not about just having the perfect cells and you're super healthy. It's actually about anti-aging the DNA, the cells, to where you were once healthy, or at least break open the DNA, go back to that timeline of the DNA and get the picture of that healthy liver, okay, that frequency, and then come back and holographically imprint that over the damaged liver, and then you have a new liver just as the day you were born. Isn't that fascinating?
So that's we're talking about things that are beyond materialist physics here, because my first editor I picked was a materialist physicist, because I wanted to face all of these arguments right before my book came out, as we're talking about this. But anybody who's probably watching this, or who's a fan of your show, or who knows you, I feel like we're probably talking to the converted. They understand a little bit more than most people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we have some new people too. I mean, once this gets posted, we usually hit around 30,000 people in 24 hours. So people are going to be listening to this, and I'm sure resonating with it and questioning things, which is great. You got to question everything and go do your own research, is what I tell everyone, or get a scan from us, and then we'll teach you all about it. It's a very intricate thing. And I think people, the more knowledge that people have for, you and I, Frank, doing these kinds of events and talking about these things really accelerates the human consciousness, number one. And number two, gives a platform for us a platform for the person to actually ascend into a different field of science, which needs to be said, because this is not pseudoscience. This is all real stuff. It's just been suppressed for 100 years or so. And like I said, it's slowly trickling out. And, I don't have time to go out and, do silly podcasts and, things, get interviews going, because it's not the right time. Yeah, we're all here. We're ready for it. But the whole world's not ready for that. And until they give authorization for, these scientists to be taught without getting killed, then, that's a time that we'll step up. One of the things, Darla and I are working on is the Quantum Sciences Academy. That's going to be next to the Emery's spaceship healing experience here in Las Vegas. These things are, 3 years out, but it's, we have the platform for it, and it's already been approved. And, we have investors already and stuff. We're not asking for that kind of money. I mean, we need money now just to run the show, of course. So thank you for your donations. I see some donations have come through. We really appreciate you, because we run on a lot of these donations. So whatever you guys can give is very thankful, whether it's just a couple dollars or whatever you can do. We want to thank you for that. And, it's going into that arena where, since they can't say the science doesn't exist, because now it's being leaked out all over. And of course, with the advent of, the reason they don't want to prove extraterrestrials live and are amongst us is because then you open up the sciences, because they didn't get here on gas, coal, and oil. They live for thousands of years. They're just, so far advanced. Now, we would have been at that level if we weren't suppressed back in 1895. And, this is a giant experiment here on planet Earth. So we have, it's a very interesting, they call it the Disneyland of the universe, because we have so many amazing species here of not just humans, but other species that all kind of work together, and we survive and work together. And we're damaging the planet. Okay. And that's something, I always tell people, I'm first actually working on the planet, and then the creatures of the planet, and then the humans next. I get a lot of slack for that, but without those things in that order, we don't have a good survivability rate. And it all works together. So they're all very important. And a lot of the technologies that we use to heal ourselves are actually going to be used to heal the planet, transmute the waters, get the radioactive particles out of the atmosphere and then inside the land. The aquifers are all completely damaged except for a few. And the radiation is, what's making us age. And we should be able to resist that. But that code on the gene has not been activated yet. And we do have scientific teams working on this, because don't forget your vibratory frequency. We need to learn how to use that frequency to block EMF, to block radioactive materials and things like that. And we can do it. And we can levitate, and we can fly, and we can do telepathy very easily. It's just something that has been suppressed for quite a while.
So yeah, there's I've heard numbers like 23 different species, and necessarily they all kind of think they own us, but they don't necessarily agree with each other. Some of them work together. There's a lot of drama behind the scenes. Like I feel a little freer to talk here than I do in other places, just because you're, because it's a cosmic disclosure kind of crowd. But I do think, okay, so one of my speakers, Nikkiana Jones, just after another friend had come and told me about another experience like this, witnessed one of these disappeared scientists. She's a flight attendant. She's cleaning her plane at night. Everybody's asleep. And she goes, where do I know her from? Then she goes, oh, that's that Amy Eskridge chick that, disappeared, that they said was dead, and as she was looking at her, she noticed her looking, and she said right in front of her eyes, she just turned into a woman with blonde hair with a bob. Amy Eskridge has short, dark hair and a bob in her head. And she kind of went back, and she was like, what did I just see there? Right. So part of what I'm saying is that it's not like there's going to be a UFO is going to come down on the White House lawn. We're walking amongst others right now, and we also there's different agendas, different. They seem to have rules. They seem to have real strict rules. They seem to know how to get around rules sometimes. There seem to be kind of contracts, and you have probably a lot better, deeper knowledge. I anecdotally have learned a lot of things. I'm going to go in a couple of weeks and talk to David Icke, because after finishing my book, I was like, just like critical thinking without any evidence, it all makes so much sense of what he's been saying for decades, and the amount of attack and the amount of stuff he's had to suffer also has made me think like that's also a measure for me of somebody's credibility now, is how much they get attacked and how much who comes after them, right? Yeah. So I don't really want to focus on a lot of this strange and negative stuff yet. There are still you got to remember that when you see the electromagnetic spectrum, if you spread it all out, the amount that we perceive is so tiny. Like even a human hair is like, to show you how tiny it is. My metaphor for that is a beach as far as you can see, and you take one grain of sand off of it, and that's even overstating it a bit. So we've been on purpose blinded to almost everything that's around us. And I was talking privately with Emery about this, how you walk into a room and you get a sense for the room, you get a sense for a person across the room, you get a sense for a feeling of how an interaction is going. And sometimes it's not just that gut, it's also that sense of all the unseen things, the energies, your energetic field, your biofield, the other ones in the room, the synchronicity of the frequencies, and the only way to really kind of process this, because if you try to think of this and hold this all in your head, it's just to kind of go back to that gut and feel it, right? Because if you're trying to process all that and explain it, it gets to be too much. So,
yeah, I mean, being aware, of course, is really important, and not taking on extra entities, and not just, you're going to walk into a room of 100 people. They're not all going to be in your best interest. These are, you're walking amongst extraterrestrials every day. They're here. They've been here. They're monitoring us. They're working with us, some with us, some without us. And it's not like people just think, oh, extraterrestrial, they have it all together. Okay, they have drama too. Okay, they're not bulletproof either. They fall under the three-dimensional laws of physics here on planet Earth, and also emotional physics and energies. So a lot of these extraterrestrials, are got their emotions under control, or they don't have any emotions because they weaned them off as they got older through their lineage, because they didn't think it was of service. But it all works together, and a lot of them are regretting that as well. And that's why they're looking at our DNA and trying to backtrack and survive where they're from. And a lot of extraterrestrials too, this is another thing I've been teaching, is a lot of extraterrestrials that I've been involved with and I have spoke to, and the ones that come visit, they're actually from our past. Yeah, so think about that for a second. Just because you think we're not the timeline, okay, there's civilizations that have been here for billions of years, and they might look futuristic to us when they come in their craft or with their equipment and stuff, but actually they're coming, they've already have been advanced. So that's just another thing when you're out under the stars, think about that. There is no time with them, because all their craft are interdimensional, they're time traveling devices. So they can, go from here to there. And it's a big responsibility too. They can't just come, like you said, and land on the White House lawn. That's not what's going to happen. When they do come, it'll be very diplomatic. You won't see a bunch of craft in the sky. That's a false narrative that everyone's talking about. All these craft are going to come in, and if you see that, then pretty much that's going to be fake. They don't want to scare us. They're going to be coming through energy portals. You probably won't even see them come through the portal. They're going to look just like us. They're going to have suits on. They're going to meet at a designated area with the political figures of the world, and they're going to have a diplomatic conversation, because that's what we can handle right now. That's as far as we can go. Even the higher ups wouldn't be able to handle anything other than that. And that's that's why I want to get rid of that whole fear factor of this invasion and all these big crap, and they're just going to come out and like save us. It's not like that. No, it's going to be done the right way on our kind of diplomatic terms, the way we've been kind of meeting with other world leaders. The best thing about this is there's not going to be a translation problem. You know, all the wars were based off of communication, translation issues. And when you have extraterrestrials involved, you don't have that problem because the way they transmit and communicate is very specific in all the languages and mostly in telepathy, of course.
Well, so boy, 10 things there. So languages, right? I start my book off talking about I was in Tikal, and we had Mayan elders doing ceremonies for us, and some of them have retained parts of their ancient language. And then we would go into a museum, and they would read the stelas, and everything was kind of encoded in almost like a Knights Templar, where like this would be the day of the year, and it would affect this stuff. And there's basically, when you have people that have retained bits of these ancient languages and they put a brain scanner on them, their brain lights up totally different than when they're speaking a modern language. And I'm talking like ancient Greek, Sanskrit, Celtic, Aramaic, basically every ancient language made the brain work differently. They burned people at the stake to get rid of these languages. Because I would not have had to write this book if we still had those ancient languages because of the way the brain worked. It would take something like 20 years, 18 to 20 years to learn ancient Celtic. And those dudes kept the Romans out. Nobody kept the Romans out, but those guys did, you know? And so I wanted to just mention that the language and how we speak, the confounding of tongues to me is a very, that's a smoking gun in the past of this story, because right now I get in a cab in Athens, and I'm going to talk to the driver because I got Google Translate, right? Screw this confounding of tongues. I got this now, right? And so no matter where I'm at, I'm using this capability. Yeah. And what I learned is that people are people. We're all humans. But when they split us up like this, on purpose, it was a way to create conflict, misunderstanding, all that stuff. And so what you're talking about is that direct connection. There's no misunderstanding. There's no language. There's no, and it's instantaneous. But there was somebody who brought up about dealing with attachments, and this is like a synchronicity. I think it's kind of out of order here with the conversation, but I wanted to mention this. Corrado Malanga, I just went to Italy for the second Sphinx conference with Filippo Biondi and Corrado Malanga. And at the time, I didn't really know who Corrado Malanga was, because on purpose, he has kept his stuff out of English language because he said he wants to live. And but when you go there was a room in Bologna of 1,000 people that were there for Corrado. I mean, Filippo, we all know Filippo Biondi, but they were there for him. And he basically goes there. Like he's not talking about if there's ETs, if there's been abductions, he's basically worked a protocol out that is, when you get messed with by these guys, they do a fracturing, and it's something that we are a mighty human. We can fix it, right? And he just sent me the first English translation of the method, and I've been getting messages every other day. Did you do it yet? Did you do it yet? Because I ended up, I had to like dictate it so that I could be relaxed and have it come back to me. And then I sent them a copy of it, and they were like, got really upset that I put music behind it. No music, it has to be silent, So I did that. But what I'm saying is, for the person that was asking about this, the reptilian attachments or other attachments, I will get, they thought I was going to put it out. They're allowing me, I guess, to put it out. So I said, no, this was just for me. I didn't, I wasn't putting it out with the music under it. But I just wanted to mention to people on here, if you want to keep an eye on Mortals of Earth, at some point, as soon as I get them completely happy with what I'm doing, I will put out this method where you can basically yourself go in, and you don't have to do it once. And you can if you even think you've been messed with, and millions of people have, okay, you'll be able to go back in, because you are the mighty human. You can repair yourself, and you can reintegrate that fractalization of you got your divine spark, you've got your body, you've got your spirit. It's one thing, and it's bringing them back together. When they mess with you, they pull it apart. And so, yeah, if you watch Mortals of Earth, and I'll do a video on it so that I'll have the narration of what to do, and you only will need to do it once. And Corrado Malanga has started issuing his stuff in English, but I just saw that comment and I wanted to address that.
Yeah, thank you for addressing that. Yeah, there are people out there that are having infiltration of, reptilian-like species and other species, demonic species, all sorts of things that, can easily be, removed, from the body with your technology and your techniques. And keeping them away is also very important as well. And, not exposing yourself to that, the negativity that surrounds you or the thought processing behind that. Hold on one second. I got to plug my computer.
I'll show you a cute dog while he's busy. Here we go.
Yeah, where's the dog here? Okay. Hey, Charlie. How you doing?
He's like, "What's going on, Dad? What do I do?"
Oh.
Okay.
So getting back to the harmonics too, you're talking about with languages and stuff, harmonics are really great for activating and protection and activating different parts of the DNA, so you can actually, communicate a little bit easier, whether it's vocally or through, your mind. And I think so. Anyone that's doing harmonic stuff or sound bowls or meditations like that or ohms or whatever, it's really really important. It also resets the body every time you do that, to clear it. And clearing is something you have to do daily. It's like working out. You got to take your 10-15 minutes a day in the morning and night, clear your body however you do it, sitting in a quiet spot, or just being with yourself for a little bit and shutting everything off that's around you, so you're not getting bombarded by other frequencies that could be surrounding you, which I see a lot of in the big cities. And we have a lot of people that, of course, live in big cities, and it's a constant thing that they have to protect themselves from that, because these different types of frequencies can manipulate the mind. And you're also being showered a lot of mind control stuff, and gives you different thoughts that are not your thoughts. It's easy. It happens to all of us. You could be sitting there and maybe all of a sudden you start thinking something you normally wouldn't think about because someone did you wrong 20 years ago, or maybe someone just cut you off. You have a choice there to make the decision. Yeah, I can feed that right now and get off on a tangent, or I could just not get upset, and bless that person and move on. You got to take the higher road with these things, because, every sentence that someone says could be a trigger, could be a picture of something you saw on TV as a trigger of an emotional something that happened to you. I had really bad PTSD when I got out of the military, being deployed multiple places. I had to work through that, and it took maybe 20 years for me to get through that, to recognize, hey, these thoughts don't serve me, and I have to deal with that. And I think a lot of people, whether you're in the military or not, have been through, many people, everyone's been through traumatic incidences in their life. It's part of life. I don't know anyone that has not been through a traumatic incident in their life. That you have to recognize that and come to terms with that, and you need to fix that. You need to be aware of that and be accountable for your actions too, how you're going to deal with that.
Yeah, so I just want to give everybody something real quick here that I kind of came across. When you could wake up at night, you could feel, you could get it, something could happen, could trigger you, you could be really upset. There's a response that goes on, and it's something you may not physically, be able to just mentally, you could, with breath, you can interrupt it. And this is very fast. You can take a deep breath and then sip a little more breath, hold it, compress it, squeeze, then let it out really slow. And if you feel you need to, you could do that a couple times in a row, and it will just cut off. There's a whole scientific medical thing for what this does. But and then you'll find yourself in a whole different place. Otherwise, what'll happen is it'll keep recycling and getting stronger. And it could be something that's really hitting at something that's a tender spot of yours. But another thing to remember is that if we're all coming from this divine spark. And I had this conversation with Nassim about quantum entanglement, and I said, it's just the craziest thing if something is like billions of light years away and it's quantumly entangled here, and I wiggle it here and it wiggles over there. I said, that just says to me that's all an illusion, that it's all in one spot, right? And well, he just looked at me and smiled. He didn't say anything. But my point with that is that when let's say this has happened to me, I'll be sitting and all of a sudden my ear will start ringing, right? Yeah. Or I'll get a really uncomfortable feeling or something, right? And I'll just go, okay, that's not normal. And I'm not accepting that. So I just close my eyes for a minute, see myself as a lighthouse with one-way mirrors. And anything that's coming at me goes back twice as strong. And then out of my spine comes that divine spark and shines out to literally sometimes within seconds, the hearing that stops, the feeling stops. And these can be attacks. These can be a result of a frequency. This can be something that you're not seeing, but you have the power, the agency, and the connection. That's what makes you the mighty human. You have that connection. That's why they mess with us. That's why they use us, is because of that. And so taking back that and protecting yourself, putting that barrier around you and realizing that you don't have to have that religious figure or this person to protect you. You can protect yourself. And what Emery's talking about is like a daily practice of this. It's just keeping that protective barrier. And you can make it like, okay, I want to protect my family. I want to protect my community. I want to protect my county. I want to protect my state. I want to protect my country. It's quantum. You are the mighty human,
Yes. Yeah, it's the empowerment too that people need to realize how powerful they really are. And the extraterrestrials look at us like we're the super powers, we're the superheroes of the universe because of the amount of trauma and attacks that we go under every day, and we're still resilient. I'm so glad you brought up the breath work, because I teach this to all my patients. Whether you're getting anxiety or you're getting activated from something, or you just can't sleep. One of the things I've learned a long time ago in the 80s from Sri Rogala was there's this one simple breathing, this is very similar to what you do. I do it for 7 seconds in, 7 seconds hold, 7 seconds out. And I'll tell them, we'll try to do it 7 times. I don't know anyone that can really do it that long usually. And you're just focusing on the breath, okay, in through the nose 7 seconds, hold 7 seconds, out through the mouth 7 seconds, and you're counting. You're not thinking about anything else. And you hit it on the head, because you just said, that cuts the energetic field of thought that's coming in, that's manipulating you. So these simple little processes, I'm really strong with this stuff, really can do amazing things. If I can't sleep one night, I'll just sit there and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna do my breath work. And by the second time, I'm usually, okay, it's time to sleep, and your body resets. And it really works wonders with that, because you're focusing on that moment, and you're also giving this different type of energy into the body that surrounds you, that you have to access. Breathing is one of those accesses to use that to heal yourself.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to give a little bit of a commercial for the conference again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I've got the Scott Walter just did the Y Files. JJ's got a basement podcast. It's got like millions of views now, because he's got literally what they're talking about, the handwriting of Yeshua, or some people know him as Jesus. And they've actually got it translated where what he's talking about is being only half of a human. And so he'll explain more about that at the conference. But these are things that they've been trying to keep out of the hands of the Vatican. And he's on his way after he goes to this conference. They've recovered some coded documents, Templar documents, that were they actually talk about interacting with non-humans, right? Going back thousands of years. So these guys, I said, what is it like for somebody that you're standing on the shoulders of these people that went through all kinds of danger, all kinds of, perils. They hid these things. They encoded them. They passed them from father to son in order to get them. And then, one passes away and all of a sudden the other ones get a bunch of packages in the mail, right? And that's what happened here. So so he'll be bringing that to, you're going to see the handwriting of Yeshua, right? And JP is going to be bringing the pine cone that was given to him by a Nordic being that he feels compelled to plant a seed here in Mackinaw, which gave me a whole responsibility attack, because it's like, what could be more valuable, and precious, and that you can't just leave it for a deer to come and eat, or somebody to come and steal or destroy or whatever, right? And then we've got
you're gonna have to tie Charlie out there on a rope and make sure he doesn't let anyone near it.
He thinks he's a big boy, yeah. And then Trevor Grassi's bringing this information on the non-human presence in Egypt, and over the years he's shown me things like, check this out, they just found this. It was a doorway, and over the doorway was definitely a non-human head. Literally within 2 weeks it was dynamited. It's been really heavily suppressed coming out of Egypt, even with national security orders to cover things up. Yeah. And so and Trevor gets in enough trouble on his own anyway. He doesn't need to make more. I'm like, really, you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, it's time. He's going to bring this out. And we just came back from a expedition to Piedras Negras, which Edgar Cayce named as one of the 3 places that they left halls of records before the last cataclysm. And I pretty much, we've got a place for Filippo to scan. I took my dowsing rods, and all day long it kept pointing to the same spot. And so we pretty much know where they're at there. And it's middle of the jungle, extremely dangerous. You can only get there on a river. We smashed the boat up once going there, and the guy was pretty handy putting it back together. You're in rapids and going around with no motor, and crocodiles, poisonous snakes, scorpions, army ants. It's the real jungle. And drug gangs had put graffiti on the ancient ruins out there. So it's definitely not something, I don't recommend anybody go there. But what I'm saying is, for all of these things, like for Scott Walter to be bringing forth these writings that have been hidden for all these years, and for the decoding of figuring out what Edgar Cayce said and the location of these Hall of Records, and also what's happening with Giza Plateau. I'm hoping Trevor will bring some of the work forward from Gary Osborne and some of the other people they're finding the entire layout of Giza is actually a Hall of Records as far as the measurements, the locations, the geometry, and everything. And I've got let me think. Yisa is coming with Inez or Donetta. Yeah, these are coming to Mackinaw. They're actually my guy was just getting through over the border today. I haven't heard from him yet, so hopefully everything went okay. The 2 there on the left, we call those the twins. And then that big crystal tablet on the right it's big. It's like probably about 2.5 feet, and it's about 1.5 to 2 inches thick, and it's got images on both sides. And all of those vases are coming, and they've got they're crystalline, and one is a quartzite, and one has an amethyst running through the back of it. And then there's a little guy up in the corner who looks like he's Toltec, but his head was loose. We thought it was broken, came off, and he had a very not human head underneath it. It was like a helmet, right? And it glows. So we have chain of, like, starting the first shovel, getting all the way through, breaking into this cave, finding these. We have all of that video, and we're going to be showing that. And just yesterday, Isha was there, found another crystal skull with some more artifacts, and we're pretty sure we think that there's something that's not human there that this was a tribute to, and we'll be working on that in the future. So of the people coming to this conference, it's going to be Isha, Sean Bond's making it there, Trevor, myself, Inez or Donetta. Oh my God, I'm forgetting, but a lot of, let me look at there. Nikki Anna Jones has been there. And so we'll all be able to talk about this location, which I've been saying I think is like a Valley of the Kings, which is where all the kings were buried in Egypt, in Mexico. And because Tula is it's a very okay. Let me just say there is disinformation. There are fakes coming out, but we have technology to be able to identify what's real and what's not. And also when you're digging into something that's been sealed over and had foundations on it from hundreds of years ago, and you're breaking into it. I mean, there's a lot of just, critical thinking that you can realize what's real and what's not. Yeah, Mark Russell, who's one of the original guys going back, bringing these artifacts forward, and actually not pictured on there is Trevor Hawk, who's got. We did a 2-hour talk, and he's giving me a shorter one, but we'll play the whole thing when we're going to have a pop-up museum with these artifacts, and for the first time, these things are going to be shown. So you'll be able to. They have a crystalline. Some of them are made of crystal, but the actual artificial polymer that looks like stone, but it's not, is actually crystalline as well. And when I first obtained some, interesting things started happening, like lights were flashing, messages were being typed on my watch. And so there's a technology at work here that I'm hoping people will come and help us unlock, decode, uncover, because I don't think that it's it's like that we have.
It's really cutting edge information that no one has, everyone. I mean, the lineup here with Trevor and everybody else, I mean, Isha, and I mean, it's really an unfathomable amount of knowledge here for those. This is very amazing lineup. It's the best of the best. I highly recommend, going and seeing this. Unfortunately, Darla and I will be coming through live stream. We won't be there physically, but I would definitely highly recommend going to this. The information that you're going to be seeing, or get a live stream at least for it, because there's a lot. And I know the inside, behind the scenes. I won't give it away. I'm very excited for this meeting because there's things being said to the civilian community that's never been talked about ever, and the archaeological paleontology communities that I'm also affiliated with are very excited about this. And these are some of the highest scholars out there, letting, these guys do the footwork and doing a lot of their own investment for testing and stuff, which I've been involved with for 20 years with these programs with these artifacts. And it's definitely something that needs to be looked at, deciphered. And these artifacts are a lot more than just artifacts. There's stories behind the artifacts. They're telling a story, like the Emerald tablets. And a lot of these things are talking about activation techniques and activating different types of portals and other technologies around the world. So it's a fascinating lineup that you put together here, Frank. And I'm so excited. I'll be watching it from home, but I'm really excited to see the lineup and watch these amazing releases of information with the archaeological stuff. That's going to blow people away. And I love the testing. There's a lot of due diligence with testing, when I've been involved heavily with that, with the other Trevor. And, this is real stuff. These geopolymers are real. I don't know if I can even talk about it. It's we're building the new buildings this way with geopolymerization, because they are hard drives. They're crystalline structures that, you don't have to use a Bluetooth. You can put energy through the entire building using these geopolymers, and it's the wave of the future. The buildings are going to be 3D printed and constructed using geopolymers. That's the future, mark my word. And we're going to be some of the first people. The largest geopolymer corporation is right here in Las Vegas. And we're working with Trevor, with him, trying to get some of the first buildings built this way that they have done. So that's probably news to you, Frank, too. But, we're very heavily involved with that. I love the science behind it, because all these metal buildings and wood buildings and all these, the products that we're using to build our homes are actually working against us with chemicals and other things. And, the buildings of the future will all be healing buildings. The buildings will be the med beds. You're going to be the med bed activating your building that you sleep in. Imagine that your whole building that you and your loved ones live in are healing you without EMF and without radio frequencies, and blocking any other EMF frequencies coming into the home. That's where it's really going. And it's a really, I probably said too much already, but I'm Emery Smith, so I'm going to say whatever I want.
Well, I was just mentioning to somebody today, like, that's copper paint on my walls, right? And then, in my walls, I had to rebuild this house. Used to look out at the road, but the lake's there because it was an old motel, and they used to that was their business. But when I had the walls rebuilt from recording studios, and also from looking at ancient temples, I noticed there was not straight walls. And then when you look into it, Jonathan E. West said that, speaker cabinets, the master guys in Woodstock would make a round corner in the back, right? And when you go into like the Valley of the Kings, you got a stone and it wraps the corner, right? So first I started with I made a little recording studio. And so I was talking to I have like a bunch of guys here to do wood shop, and we've got mechanics and all kinds of things. I said, I need this, and I need it to be like not symmetrical. So I drew this crazy thing, right? And one of the guys went away and he looked at it and he looked it up, and he was just an old Coast Guard guy, but he was real practical. And he went, you don't have to do the whole building like that. He goes, you got this wall straight. This one, you just kick it out a little bit. He goes, you already got a shed roof. And then this wall here, you be straight. And where the door is, we'll just kick that one in a little bit. And that's the way this house is. Today, I was just showing, I turned on the surround system, put on a really loud song, and I stood next to the person I was showing to, and I said, just talking like this, you could still hear each other. The music sounded great, and you didn't have these standing waves building up, right? And the standing waves aren't just sound. There are other frequencies as well. But every building in civilization has straight walls and straight corners and creates these resonant frequencies. So when we're talking about these new technologies, it's not just that we've got a material that's impervious to hot and cold and doesn't grow lichens, and that is, that will last thousands of years. That's from common materials that will self-heal. It's also the geometry of it, and you can orientation and other things as well. But it costs nothing to do that. All it takes is you kick it out a tiny bit. Same amount of materials. I mean, the wallpaper guy had challenges making the pattern match up, but he was up for it. But
I hope that wallpaper was made of silver, right?
Well, behind it is copper paint. So yeah.
So Frank, what's your opinion? I have a question for you. Why do you think behind the megalithic structures and everything, they do that half circle? You talk about the half moon, carvings behind a lot of these things. And when you walk into these, and we've seen this all over the world, you and I, but what do you think that's for, some sort of sound resonance or energy field? Or
I think it's because we're talking about sound, right? And you're talking about frequency, and you're a very high level understanding of frequencies and sound. So when I tell you that, okay, it's not only interrupting the standing waves in the room, it's interrupting other standing waves that we don't necessarily perceive, hear, or feel. Because we've all been in like in a little kitchen with 4 people, and you can't even hear each other talk just from what's happening in there. And it's unpleasant, or even like a conference room. So I think that I was in Derinkuyu, like underground, there's room for 20,000 people to live under there. And there's this room, and it had a little U-shaped thing. And Mohammed Ibrahim goes, come here. Because he knows like I was a singer, and he points on the ground, and there's just 2 like shoe print kind of things, where you put your feet, and it was like I had to crouch down, like, so I couldn't really get any air, right? So I just go, and little do I know, out in the other room, huge room, everything was just like shaking, right? So here's a harmonically tuned room underground in this cave that was like scary, like powerful. Now in the King's Chamber, it's very parallel, and it's made to build up those frequencies. And so my most unfavorite thing is going in there with a bunch of very spiritual women who think that they're doing something, and they start howling like banshees, and it's like the wrong frequency. The frequency is a much deeper frequency, right? And so you kind of let them get tired, and then go in and fix it with some deep low tones to kind of balance it back out. But in the back of the Osirian, Trevor Grassi showed me this picture, and when I went there the last time, I looked at it myself. When you see these rocks wrap around a corner 4 inches, you're going, what the hell? Why would you do that, right? What it looks like is they would put them in a standard way, but then they had some kind of huge thing that just like a big sander going that cuts it into it and brought it down. And it's like half done, like they got interrupted there, and you could see it. It's like, oh, that makes sense, right? You could see, but like, what the hell could that be? It was like almost this huge, like 40-foot thing all done at once and just stopped right there. But I mean, even the Parthenon in Greece, you think of it as this thing with these pillars and this, thing. But if you draw the lines, it actually goes up to a pyramid.
Yeah.
And so none of the, unless they were made to purposely build up standing waves for a reason. They were made for tuned resonances, exactly what you're doing. Like, this place would be for healing, this would be for spiritual growth, this would be for whatever. Yeah. Something happened, somebody decided that wasn't a good idea, that these humans got it too easy, we need to control them a little more, basically kind of cover up, destroy it. Anything coming out of these places has been really hard to get into the mainstream, the study, but it's almost like it's thawing. Yeah. Something's happening. It's leaking out here and there. So there's light at the end of the tunnel.
They destroyed all the buildings, the healing buildings and structures of the planet. There's very few left. And as you know, just like in Angkor Wat and all these other places, those buildings were made as energy structures for healing the masses and healing the planet at the same time, all through just vibratory acoustics. And what you're talking about there was definitely a healing chamber, an activation chamber, an astral traveling chamber, depending on the tonality. And I think we're getting back into tonality and harmonics and frequency. That's where we're all going right now, especially in medicine. They've already came out now saying that we have ultrasounds, that can destroy, different types of cells in the body that are not good for you. So I think it's on a slow trajectory, but at least, it's being observed, and, I'm only as fast as the slowest runner on the planet. So we're all in this together, and that's what everyone needs to know. We all have to be one. We all have to be respectful of each other and bring each other all together. It's not a one and done thing. No one's going to be a one world leader here. That's not how we get things done at all. It's about working as the community and the group collective consciousness, which is really important. And that's why I like to see all these people on here, and I'm really anxious to see, it's going to be fun to see this get out to everyone. And I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people. So it's on a great trajectory. And I think it starts right here, Disclosure and Mackinaw, releasing a lot of this information. And, hats off to you to put this on. I know we put on conferences, all the time, and I've done thousands of conferences all by myself. It's a lot of stress, a lot of work. And, I know it's going to have a good turnout, and a lot of you guys, if you can't make it, please just hop on and watch the show, and you're going to learn a lot about a lot of information. Like I said, I'm biting my tongue, Frank, because I'm that excited for all these people to come forward. I know most of the people that are going to be there, and I've worked with most of the people that are there, and it's really going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Trevor Grassi, shout out. He just popped in and he was thanking you because he's got some disclosure from John Charles Moyen that he's going to be bringing out at the conference regarding what's under Giza Plateau. And also we've got, a clip from Cosmic Disclosure that will be, showing us corroborating evidence as well. And so it's this kind of cooperation in this community of being able to get this information out, not have ego about it, not say this is my story, this is my angle here, because it's a big puzzle, and we need like everybody to put the pieces together, and it's going to be our overall field, as many of us as we can, to get on this, this love frequency, this frequency of healing, and getting our correcting our all these anomalies in our DNA and the traumas from our past, and being able to elevate and get things back to where they were before, whatever that was that happened, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is going to be a very enlightening meeting for everyone that's going to be tuned into it. It is life-changing, and hearing other people talk about this also is activating. And you have a lot of good-hearted people there. All the speakers are, understand, have the same kind of thought that Frank and I have here, and that's why it's going to be a really positive event for the world. And this is going to sprout new seeds across the world when it's been shown over and over and over. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I'm glad you mentioned Cosmic Disclosure. Guys, I've been filming Cosmic Disclosure with Gaia TV now for about 10 years, and still #1 show, thanks to you guys. We got like 33 million people that watch me every week in 55 different countries. It's translated, and you're more than free to use any of our stuff that we have that Gaia gives us. I'll talk to Cameron about that. If you guys need any clips or anything, if you guys want to register to see that, Cameron will put up the link here. And if you already have a a Cosmic Disclosure, a Gaia TV subscription, and it wasn't through me, well, then cancel that subscription and use this one, because we get credit for that. And we're trying to build our subscribers through our social networking, and which we're allowed to do that, by the way. It's not anything, they're actually encouraging it. And we're also going to be doing a lot more behind the scenes. I've finally been given permission to do behind the scenes stuff. So we might play a Cosmic Disclosure in the future, and I'll narrate what's really going on and some of the questions that were asked that we couldn't really say, or really funny things that happen behind the scenes. It's really a lot of fun. So thanks for mentioning Cosmic Disclosure, Frank and Trevor. I'm more than happy to help you with all that stuff, because if more people just started with episode 1, season 1 with Cosmic Disclosure and binge watched it all the way to season 33 now, you'll be highly elevated in your consciousness and background of a lot of things that are going out there with some of the top military insiders, of course, that are out there as well. That we have a really plethora of different people that we interview, of course.
Yeah, that's always my prescription for people. I say, okay, get Gaia, start watching it episode 1, and just go through Cosmic Disclosure, and it's going to bring you to a whole nother level of understanding and information. And if you need to do the 2-week trial period, and if you can stop it after that, then okay. But it gets so intriguing, it's so interesting, and there's so much, and it just keeps building. You guys are still, okay. So can you imagine, like right now, something that when you started that show that you could talk about now that you couldn't talk about then? Does the amount of disclosure you can give change as time goes on?
Oh yeah, it changes daily. Absolutely. Those first seasons, when I never planned on going forward, thanks to David Wilcock, and convinced me to go forward. After 20 years before that, giving him and other colleagues information, I really didn't want to go forward. I had to go forward. I was in a very dangerous situation with some of the laboratories I was running with energy and biologics that they didn't want at that time. I don't have those threats right now at all. They've all, that's all. As soon as I went public, pretty much all the threats started disseminating, yearly. It got better and better and better. And then we came out with healing technologies, and we were actually healing, I'll just say, some of the bad guys too, the white hats and black hats. And we became a really great asset. And once they found out I'm not trying to disrupt, these major corporations, I want to work with them and release this technology slowly, because a lot of stuff that I have invented in the military or slapped with a National Security Act, where I can't really bring it to fruition. But I do start, talking about what I can talk about, which is safe and effective, for the masses, and safe and effective, of course, for my family and myself. We don't want to be put in that position again. There's no need for that, to do a Hail Mary and drop you got to drop your ego and, make sure everyone's on board. Like I said, I got to bring everyone with us. We can't just do this. You can't be some rogue agent. I had enough of that in the military, being a rogue agent. You got to be, compliant, and you have to have respect for everyone involved. There's other things going on that, I don't know everything, and I have to learn through my advisors and intelligence committees and things like what's going on, what can be said, what shouldn't be said, and use my own discernment when I'm talking to the people. And I think that's what people like about me, because I don't, if I can't talk about it, I won't talk about it. If it's going to hurt the masses or myself, I want to be a voice out there for you guys and be truthful, and give you the right information that is being conveyed to me. And that's going to help the masses slowly understand that this is bigger than what we thought. Yeah, the ETs are there. Yeah, they're definitely assisting us, and then we're building this great community. I never would have thought this would have took off like it has. This is not my main thing. I do this just as a hobby on the side for informative stuff and entertainment, as Frank said, so we don't get cut off here. It's really just about, the education for me is really big for the planet, and not holding everything back, because now's the time. Right now is going to be an accelerating time with knowledge and science and all sorts of amazing, developments that are happening. It's just, it's a little slow, but since it's slow, once you get outside and go to the beach and walk through the park and dip yourself under the waterfall for once. Think about yourself. A lot of people are not, they get so enthralled with it and so over encompassed with it that it affects their daily lives. You're here to experience life, and you got to have the love for life too. That's why you're here. You can't just put all your toys in one box there and just sit there and fester that you only have these amount of toys. So you got to really think about the grand scheme of things. And the first thing you got to do is take care of yourself. You can't be helping others unless you're taking care of yourself, and get yourself healthy and get yourself clear consciously and astrally, and then get out there and spread the word to the best of your ability. There's so many people have so many things to offer. I see it all the time, and I think it's just a fantastic thing that everyone wants to be involved and wants to help out and be part of these new self-sustainable communities that we're working on, and be part of that. And there's going to be a time for that, and we're just we're also waiting in a holding pattern, but it is moving forward.
Well, okay, so here's Emery just gave you a really huge BS detector, okay? Because there are people out there that they have a lot of answers, but they answer every question, and not everybody knows everything. And one of the things I noticed on watching Cosmic Disclosure is you saying, "I don't know anything about that. I don't have information on that." And I was like, "Yeah," because, and it's the people that seem to think that they need to have an answer for everything, and also they like to be like the guru you come to for the information, right? Mm-hmm. And and it becomes like we were talking about, it's the ego becomes tied up in with this greater mission of just trying to open up everybody to the greater nature of the universe, and how that doesn't really help anybody, and it's also just contributing to this illness of the way we've been taught that we have to go outside of ourselves for answers. And so okay, so you do have experience, you do have information, and you can learn from you, but you're not asking for, you're not trying to be the guru,
No, I'm not the guru with it. I can only tell you what I know, and that's all I can translate to you guys, which is a lot of information. I love all the insiders out there. I love what they're doing. There's, I've seen the egos, over my, 30 years of being in this kind of field. It gets the better of some people, and they start, embellishing and writing books and, changing the story, the narrative. And that's something that's a warning sign, and a lot of you people have seen this over the many years of gurus coming in and going away and getting involved with things. It happens. It's normal, in this field for that to happen. It's unfortunate that a lot of these people don't take the higher road, but that's something that you choose their discernment of who you want to listen to. That's what the freedom is here on the planet, is take everything with a grain of salt. I tell everyone, and come to your own conclusions. Go out and look under the stars yourself. I'm not here to convince anyone ETs exist. You can't do that to me, and I'm not going to do it to you. That's a personal thing that you have to experience yourself and come to terms with. And if you're not going to come to terms with it, that's okay too, because they're coming either way. So you can put it off if you want. That's fine. You can procrastinate about it, but maybe you should investigate it on your own.
I've been telling people, I said, I think this is one of the most important things right now for everybody to understand. I mean, my family, my staff, my community, that's one reason why I wanted to have Disclosure in Mackinaw here, because it's like everybody's, you're worried about, I got to take the dog to the vet. My car's got a flat tire. I got to get some gas, and I've got to, get this check in the bank. And you forget that, we're part of this galactic community, and there's agreements and things going on behind the scenes that are going to affect everything. We're on the cusp of this in a way that I don't know how many years back we have to go. I know pre-cataclysmic, it seemed like there was a lot of these guys around hanging out and doing stuff, right? Looks like the cantina scene at Star Wars when I look at some of these artifacts. And
right.
And they're probably still here now, but we're not necessarily seeing them. But the veil is thinning, as they say, right? And so the more in tune and up to date you can kind of get on filling yourself in, learning, your own agency, controlling your energy, and being aware of your gut, your intuition, and strengthening your protection around you. You can go hang with the bros in the galactic community, be able to get your vibration a little higher, make it a little easier on them, because they have to kind of it could be a challenge for some of them to deal with us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
no, absolutely. And it is a challenge being here on the planet and working with all the different types of energies. That's part of being here and experiencing, all the different views of everything. I learn something every day. So from all sorts of people, all walks of life. And I'm here to learn. This is a giant educational platform for me being here on the planet at this time. And I love it. And I wouldn't change anything or anything that's ever happened to me or whatever, because I love being in the spot that I'm here right now with you guys. And I see the trajectory, and I remote view a lot, and it all looks great. Is it going to be a challenge? Absolutely. So we're up for the challenge. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking out loud. And like I said, you're part of that, Frank, and your team and all the people on there. Trying to decipher these things is really important. There's a lot to the deciphering. I know the Trevors and you and Ishas know, that's not just a 2D print on that skull. That's you can take that off and make that into 4D, 5D, and there's a whole bunch of information in there. And we need the minds like you guys to figure that out. And I'm always here in the background if you need any help with that. And,
let me just say, there's this guy I got to get a tooth for. That there's a certain tooth from a certain skull I got to get to a certain guy at some point. Anyway, so I just want to give Emery, you know what I'm talking about. I just want to give Emery a really big compliment here, because his time is really valuable, and the fact that he would give time to put me on this show, to talk about this conference, to appear at this conference, to be able to reveal his information at this conference on what he's working on, what his passions are now, what his new technologies are. To me, this says so much for him, because I'm not some big internet name that, he's trying to get his numbers or whatever. A lot of people are coming to Emery all the time. I mean, you got a show with that much visibility. The fact that he's we met once in Sedona, and it was like he read me right away, and we've just kind of been working together and doing things ever since. And it just shows me a difference between the people that are looking for attention, numbers, ego, celebrity, and the people that are like Emery, that are really in this for the right reasons. So my compliments to you, and I'm thanking you so much for giving me this time on your channel. I'm so grateful, Emery. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Frank. I would like to say yes to everybody. I can't. My time is very valuable. There are certain groups that I've worked with, and because you're working with a lot of people I used to work with, and we have a history with those people too, like Nassim and everyone. There are certain things, I'll, by my own accord that, I want to help out and push. And I think this is a great experience for that, for people. It's not that I'm turning down, for those listening, it's not like I don't want to be on all your podcasts or be on TV. It's just there's a time and place for that. And, maybe next year when we get things more stable with the, these different types of technologies and buildings and healing facilities and centers, we got to get that in place for the new kids that are coming out to get trained on. A lot of people are being born. There's no place that teaches, about these quantum physics and quantum healing technologies. So we really want to get, set the pace for the next generation. It's really important because the generation that's here now is a little discombobulated because they've been poisoned, and that's because of, the different types of deprogramming and horrible things that are out there that are, making us sick and all. But, the Cosmic Television Network now is, one of our awesome YouTube networks. And we really would like you to join this. It really helps us get this information out. There's 3 different tiers. In order for you to see pretty much everything, you just got to get the second tier. I know Cameron will put that up here, what the second tier is, and that really shows your support for us. And you get full access to all my webinars on podcast every Sunday. We usually charge $40 a podcast to $89 to $129, depending on who's on there. But now it's just one small price, and you get to see them all. So it's like $29, and you get to see all the episodes every Sunday. You get VIP. There it is, right there. Cosmic Clearance, $24.99 is the most popular one. If you want to help out a little bit more, you can go to Cosmic Command. We talk with, like we're talking right now with Frank, and we're going to have Frank on too, and a lot of these people you're seeing here in the near future. And we do cover really amazing mainstream events that are just happening, the discoveries that are just very recent that the scientists and archaeologists want to talk about. We get people on like that. We have really great discussions. If you like these kind of discussions that Frank and I are having, please subscribe to our Cosmic Clearance membership page there on Cosmic Television Network. And we just kind of launched that, and we do need your support to keep it going. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, but we've been doing it just weekly. So we thought, let's try a subscription base this year and just give everyone a lot more value for their money, because a lot of this information is really pertinent for those watching that you really want to know about this stuff. And these are, very credible people that we have on board. As you know, I'm very picky of who goes on and what we talk about. And, it's all about information and intelligence of, what's really happening out there. We far surpass any media news channel, that's for sure, with this kind of technology and techniques and all the stuff that we're bringing out. We also, it's a little different than Cosmic Disclosure, because it's a little bit more open. People feel a little bit more free to talk about whatever. There's no, we don't edit anything out. What you see is what you get. It's pretty raw sometimes, and that's what we like. We want the viewer to see the person that we're interviewing and the discussions we're having, and come to their own discernment of what they're listening to, and come to their own conclusions. And it's a great time that you can ask questions at the end, which is really fun, the questions we get, and it makes it very interactive. So it's a very interactive program of whoever's on there that we're interviewing for that week. So definitely check the Cosmic Television Network on the YouTube channel. You want to get the middle one, because the first one you don't get to see everything, and the second one you get to see it pretty much all. So thanks for your support, and become a member and join on that. Really would be grateful. We all be grateful for that.
Beautiful.
Well, Frank, we're hitting the 2-hour mark. I want to say, thank you again, and looking forward to working with you in the future, of course, and your team. And, if you need to get a hold of us, you can email me at emerystarlabs@gmail.com, or you can go to emerysmith.co. We have a plethora of different nanoparticleized solutions in serums. We're most noted for our Aquafarian Nano Blue, which is the secret behind the solutions. The nanoparticles are actually just the 0.2 nanometer zinc molecules. And of course, it has Ormus gold and all the other frequencies of all the crystals in it, holographically imprinted, 4-state plasma water. The ingredients in here have been known to be anti-parasitic, antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal. And it's, you can read up on online. Like I said, if you have any questions, oh, well, you got yours right there. There it is. And so I think it's, everything's nanoparticleized. So reason we do that is because it gets right into the cellular wall, into the nucleus, nucleolus, into the DNA, chromosomes, RNA. And of course, we have nasal sprays, we have anti-aging face serums, we have all sorts of different things. If you have any questions about that, please email us at emerystarlabs@gmail.com. The other big thing we do, as Frank knows, is we have the scanning system, of course, the nonlinear scanning system. Even if you're just trying to get a good baseline of your health, of where you're at right now at your age.
Let me just slip in and get 27 pages of like entertainment. That was amazing from the scan. It's crazy.
So the scan takes around 8 hours. You don't have to be present for that. It's over 5,000 pages. We have to triage it down to the top 100 concerning things, and that's the pages that we send you about. Like he said, you were a little bit more of a difficult case there, Frank, but sometimes it gets up to 27 pages, and it is quite the experience. You definitely get to talk to Darla and I. We after we do the scan, it takes us a good week or two to read it and decipher it, and then we call you up, and it takes about 3-hour phone call to go over your scan, because we educate you on what's going on in the body. So it's not just like a scan. We're actually sending scalar waves into you, and we're treating the situation, whatever it is. Maybe you have a parasitic infection, maybe you have osteoporosis, maybe you're trying to battle some other diseases. So it is a very educational thing. We do take the time. We only accept a certain amount of patients because of our pilots that run the system, and co-pilots. Darla's the main pilot. We have a couple co-pilots that run the system. They're flying around your body and literally looking for things, and it's a really fascinating science that we use. Reverse engineered from James Webb Telescope, reading planets. We did it for the body. So it's not pseudoscience. Scalar energy is well known, documented. One of my mentors back in the day, there's a lot of this kind of science, with you could read up with Tom Bearden, Oblivion. They kind of banned that book for a while. I might be able to get a copy, but so, scalar is really amazing energies. It's just, those energies can also be used as a weapon. So, we are registered with the highest authorities to be utilizing this. We're just one of like 2 corporations that can utilize this because of the stringency, utilizing these types of technologies. So it's going to be out there in the future. Like I said, in the future, you are the med bed. Your home will be the med bed, and it's an exciting times right now for this technology to get out to the masses, and we're really looking forward to watching that unfold over the next couple of years.
Yep. So I just saying, like, I started a few months ago with Emery, and like I watch these live appearances I'm doing, and I'm going, God, who's that smart guy? And I'm just thinking, it's got, I don't know, this is the big change. This is something's making my neurons fire. Something's like, acting at a level that hasn't been there before. So and we'll be interested as it goes, because for entertainment purposes, there was some things that needed attention, and we're going to see the movement on this, and things that I might not have ever discovered until it was like really a bad problem, So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're glad we got your body back on track here. You're a world traveler, so world traveling means you get to pick up a lot of friends on the way.
Yes, that's an understatement. Yeah. Anyway, well, so I am so grateful. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to your presentation at the at Disclosure in Mackinaw, and also we'll have a segment with you and JP. We'll be you sharing your information, your insider information, and then the final day we're going to close the conference with your technology. This is going to be, a major presentation of Emery and Darla explaining this whole new paradigm of wellness that you'll be able to get more of an in-depth understanding of at the conference. And like I said, we'll be streaming if you can't make it in person. Emery coupon code Emery for 10% off if you want to do it online. But if you can make it here, we could use your energy. We could use your eyeballs and the artifacts. We could use your interaction and your energy with people here. So anyway, thank you again.
You're welcome, Frank. Have a great day. And I want to thank all the listeners out there, and thanks for your support. Thank you for your prayers. We really appreciate that. We really need those. The inner circle has been under attack for quite some time. We've already lost 10 people the past 6 months in the inner circle. And that's all, national news, but, we're still going strong, and things do happen, and we look forward to, keeping you informed on everything that's going on. So I just want to thank all the listeners out there and all the fans, and it's been a great support system, and we really love you guys, and we're here for you, and we're representing you. All right. We love you guys. Have a great day. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Cosmic Television Network. Dropping truth bombs.